I like board games. And I picked this one up at Winners of all random places. Paid $25 for it. Thought, oh, this will be fun. It's one of those ones that you can only play once. And you go through and you solve this mystery by booming around. There's a clue game like it, Sherlock Holmes games. There's lots of similar ones. Can we turn it down just a bit? Anyway, this fucking thing.
No.
You end up, screw you, Sean. You end up at a dead end. You literally cannot solve this game because about 2/3 of the way through, there's a puzzle you have to solve, and there's no clue in it for the puzzle at all. It's a complete fucking waste of time. I went through all the cards and everything like that afterwards, trying to like retrofit solving the puzzle. You can't. It's fucking impossible.
Can we turn it down, he says, folks. Can we turn it down? You know what, Twos? You should be lucky I let you rant over the song anymore. You should just leave the song play, you know? Oh, can we turn it down? Can we turn it down? What are you, becoming an old man? I heard you hurt your back now. Your ears aren't working so fine.
I'm just a little bit crippled, man. So, yeah, if I go on some weird anti-Semitic rant, it'll be just like Mel Gibson or Rosie O'Donnell. And
you're going to blame it on the medication.
I can claim the medication made me do it.
Fair enough. Mashup 120, folks. It's good to be back in the studio, as you can probably tell. It's brought to you by Taylor King Real Estate. So Taylor has 6 years under his belt in real estate, and before that, 17 years as a sales manager in the car business, basically a lifelong salesman. He does all residential real estate between Carstairs and High River. That's a swath. You know, that's a pretty big path.
Swath.
Acreages as well. Doesn't matter if you're buying or selling. And Twos, you just recently used them.
Yeah, that rental property that I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I'd sold, I used Taylor for it, and it went incredibly well. In being on the market for 2, maybe 3 days. I think it was 2, but call it 3, whatever. Had an offer for $20,000 over, unconditional, and it went pretty much without a hitch. It was other than just a few amendments that the other people did to add a few more names onto it. That was it. It was easy peasy.
Yeah, well, he's, if you want someone who thinks like us, his own words, right? He's pro-West, pro-convoy, anti-Trudeau. I think we can all get on board with that.
Yeah.
And I think we know, and I think we should let the listeners know, he's one of the OGs of the Mashup listenership. Like, he's been here, I don't know, we're talking like what? Back to the Tuesday Mashup and pre-Rooster Slurper. Yes.
So when Taylor started listening, I was still calling Trudeau a cocksucker. That's how long ago it was.
We haven't called it that in a long time. For all your real estate needs between Carstairs and High River, head to tkre.ca. tkre.ca. So there you go. Mashup 120, brought to you by Taylor King. How about having last name of King? You know, I'm sure you can do a lot of that.
Do the king of real estate. He could just, have a crown and do some silly, like commercial, like some guy in the Midwest would do for a furniture store.
That's right. We're both thinking that's clever marketing because we both know what you're talking about. Next up we got the Mashup collection. Okay, we got some things going on when it comes to the Mashup. We're trying to get a little better with having some things for you, the fine listener, to buy. And so if that's something that you're interested in, I'll post it in the comments. And then, of course, if you're listening on the podcast, there's a link as well. Coots 2 update, okay? Coots 2, 915 days now in remand. That's Christopher Carbert, Anthony Olenek, and I think this has been the big news, right? So we had Jason Levine on the show last week, and he was talking about, not guilty of conspiracy to kill RCMP officers or to kill anyone. And now Marco Van Hugenbos had this tweet come out this week where Crown prosecutors are working for Alberta Justice are appealing the acquittal of Chris Carbert and Tony Olenek on the charge of conspiring to kill RCMP officers. So I don't know, Tooz, anything you want to chime in there?
At what point do you start calling this malicious? It's just been totally silly. Like even the explosives. Think about it. Apparently, the guy's farm was 200 clicks away from the Coots border. So I mean, that would be like if you had something in your house in PA and you got arrested in Saskatoon. And they're like, "Oh yeah, you were planning on making the run all the way back up there and coming back up to just do something real quickly." It doesn't make a lick of sense on so many levels, and I think that I want them to sue the fucking pants off of our government, even though it's coming out of our pocket. It's like the one thing I would willingly say, like, yes, I think
shell
the
out some money
government
for.
should pay for this.
Yes, yes. If you're watching, good morning, Jamie. Good morning, everyone who's hopping on. I should point this out more often when we start the show, but obviously we air live. People know this right now. But if you're listening to it later on, we air Fridays, 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Good morning, Michelle. And I've had a few people this morning, weirdly enough, text me, "Hey, when are you guys live?" So we should maybe do a better job of saying that. If you're watching on X, please give us a retweet. Share it, comment.
Feel free to like it and comment, all of those things. Because, well, I mean, you were just talking about how last week we kind of had the cross-platform thing going on, and there were so many people that had never even heard of us, even though
we're in the same
by
realm.
all rights and purposes, are people.
Yes, and I find that shocking at times too, like how we can be kind of in the same circle, the same realm, and nobody's heard of different things. It's like, oh, okay, well, we need to do a better job of pushing on you, the fine listener, of helping share that, because you can break into different audiences that maybe would have no idea we exist. So if you're watching the live, make sure to share, like, subscribe, all those good things, and that way we can hopefully continue to grow this thing and hit new audiences, new people, and have a little bit of, I don't know,
speed up the demise of the Liberal Party.
Speed up.
And here, as an exact counterpoint to what we just said, morning, watched you on Clyde do something panel last Friday. He means me. Great to see you there at DJ Mashup. So yeah, as much as, and I saw you commenting on the live stream, and I'm like, oh hey, how's it going? But I didn't get a chance to point it out because I was the guest that could bring up comments. So I saw that you were watching, appreciate it. But so there's a few people that cross over, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, cool. How many new people are? I don't know. Tooz, any idea?
Last week, tuning in this week. I think he's more asking for the people watching to chime in.
Oh, gotcha. Cool.
Else.
Cool. Yep. Well, shall we get on with today's show now that we've updated people on a new sponsor this week, the Coots 4. I should probably say Happy Airborne Friday to Jamie Sinclair and all the military boys. What else before we get going? Anything else? Mashup 120. It feels like it's going to be a good one.
Call out for community notes. If there's something going on in your community, get ready to throw it out at the end or whenever. But yeah, that way it's not a mad scramble. And other than that, let's get rocking.
And if you're new and you're going community notes, what the heck is he talking about? Towards the end, we bring up things happening in your community. If there's something happening upcoming, make sure to chime in the community notes or in the show notes, in the comments, I guess. And then we'll talk about it at the end. So there you go. All right, first headline. Here we go. The other gay Olympics.
So
if you didn't pay attention to last week, we were talking about the gay Olympics that none of us knew existed, possibly being in Edmonton. And now this week, or I guess last week, the big video that went absolutely viral. Here you go.
We're going to bring down the music quite a bit. The Australian breakdancer who scored 0 on all attempts. And look at the judges in the background. It's maybe a little bit grainy, but there's a few high-def pictures of the judges out there where they're just like, what in the absolute fuck is this? And of course,
she's made. The memes that have come out of that. Yeah, there you go.
Australia's Olympic chief blames sexism for criticism of female breakdancer.
I mean,
no, she sucked. Like, she literally got 0 points for all of it. She got 0 points, and that was it.
Breakdancing, people were skeptical of whether breakdancing should be in the Olympics, and then this
She
happens.
just killed the sport. She basically turned it into rollerblading.
Hopping to one other thing in oh man, because once again, just search out the memes and the clips and everything of that breakdancing. That was fantastic what social media did with that. Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling could face 5-year prison terms and fines of up to $214,000 in Paris 2024 Olympics after boxer Emaine Khalif he were to win her case against him. I don't even know what to say. After she included the pair in a criminal cyberbullying lawsuit, you may realize that's the male boxer who won a gold medal.
That's the male boxer who beat the snot out of the woman and then fought against another tranny boxer for gold and beat that dude, which was probably a strange experience for him. And then and it was funny. All the commentary online was like, oh, look at this queen absolutely proving all her haters wrong. No, motherfucker. All of her haters were fully expecting her to win the gold medal easily.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
All right.
That's gonna do it for the Olympics for another 2 years at least. Poop story of the week. Could swallowing a dose of human feces help cure some mental illnesses? That is what a team of Calgary researchers suspects.
Well, they're refining the poop to try and get it as unicky as possible, and then they're putting it in a pill that you swallow, and then it goes down into your guts and releases bacteria, because apparently when people eat other people's poo to promote that, to get their bacteria in their guts, they have positive mental health outcomes, which, I mean, I feel like there's plenty to explore in the mental health area there right now. Now, the question I have is, first off, why would you even try that in the first place? Secondly, why would you be like, oh, well, it's going to solve mental health? Like, it's pretty far away from your brain. And if you think it, like, Trudeau has shit for brain.
Here's the thing. There's been studies on the gut and how it relates to the brain. There's been lots of great
research. Why not do a suppository?
Why
just take the shortest route? The shortest route, Sean.
Yeah. I don't know what to add into this. There is studies going from the gut to the brain. I just think it's funny that we've turned to shit to help get people positive when, we could just do so much more in the world.
Well, I mean, so it's like, if all you have is a hammer, all your problems look like nails.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, if the only thing anybody can afford in this economy is just shit, well, let's see what we can do with it. Maybe we could build some bridges with it later.
CBC stuns with historic viewership victory. We're talking about here. I'll pull up the tweet. It says 27 million Canadians watched at least some of the Olympics on CBC and its Sportsnet and TSN partners. There was also a huge increase in free streaming on GEM. Without the CBC, there will be no further Canada-focused Olympics coverage.
This is perfect. I love this. This is the best argument that I have heard for keeping the CBC around in years. This is great. Leave it up there for a minute, please. So here's their argument. In a country of 41 million. A little less than about 70%, call it. About 70% of people tuned in at least 1 point over the 10, 11, 2 weeks that it went on. And so they had, what did they say? It ended up being 27 million hours that were watched.
Here, I can pull up some of the stats.
Which is, also keep in mind, this is their stats, so they're probably all bullshit.
Canadians consumed a record-breaking 24.3 million hours of Paris 2024 content on CBC, Radio Canada's digital and streaming platforms, an increase of 170% over Tokyo 2020 and 121% over Beijing 2022.
this is their huge CBC is important, is that 24.3 million hours spread amongst 40 million people, not even accounting for the fact that sometimes there's going to be more than one person watching at the same time. So out of all of that, you had 24.3 million hours watched, which is less than an hour per person in the country. And we do it once every 2 years. And that is why we should spend $1.3 billion per year on this. It's a shit argument. Like this is the shit pill we just talked about, and I'm not going to fucking swallow it. If this is the best you can do and you're touting it as a success story, you fucking suck. Oh, and we got fact checked here. The two dude boxers were in different weight categories. They each won a gold medal in their individual categories. My bad. But hey, at least we're willing to admit our mistakes, unlike the CBC.
I did get a text, with the election coverage, just to stick on it just for 1 second. I did get a text yesterday because I was on, I believe, Wayne Peters' show talking about CBC Gem and how it irritated me on when they keep saying free, and I'm like, it's not free. Like, I'm literally paying for it. And I actually had a guy text me, and he said he watched the Olympic coverage, specifically the Olympic coverage on CBC Gem, and he was talking about how actually good it was because you could actually flip between all the different sports instead of having to watch with
whatever they were playing.
Right. And he said instead of watching gymnastics for, 12 hours a day, he said you could flip between all these different sports. He thought that was wonderful. And that was the one comment I've had come to me of somebody watching CBC Gem, which I did not realize there was people out there that did that. And in fairness, okay. Fairness? Okay, fine. Now, whether or not that needs to be a publicly subsidized thing like Tooz and I are talking about, I think Tooz is, I'll bring it back to the numbers in the breakdown you just did.
Well, that's exactly it. That's what they tout as a success story. And it just, first of all, I feel like the reason why so many people tuned in was because of all the crazy, weird, and dumb shit that happened. And secondly, it highlights the fact that if they got 24 million
Everybody
hours
was scrambling to see what people said about the opening ceremonies. It's like,
exactly.
What did they say about this? Like, could we see?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's bring it up. Oh shit. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Yeah, I definitely can see that guy's balls. That's why people were tuning in. And then also when they say that it's more than doubled since the last Olympics, like that's how bad it was. And you still touted that one as a victory too. You fucking jerks.
Defund the CBC. Okay, this is, I've got different chunks in here. We'll start with a City News article. It said the Liberal government is refusing to say if it approved a bonus for the head of the Canadian Broadcasting Corp as opposition Conservatives demand answers to a new Democrats call for a ban on bonuses. It is up to the federal government to approve a bonus for Catherine Tate following a review of her performance and recommendations by the Board of Directors at CBC Radio Canada. CBC deferred questions to the federal government, Canadian Heritage, which oversees the Crown Corporation, then deferred questions to the Privy Council office, which supports Cabinet and the Prime Minister, citing privacy laws. A spokesperson for the Privy Council office said it cannot disclose details, even though some of that information from past years has been made public. The CBC Radio Canada Board of Directors recently approved over $18.4 million in bonuses for nearly 1,200 employees, managers, and executives for the last 2023-24 fiscal year after it eliminated hundreds of jobs. And Brian Lilly in the Toronto Sun had just 45 executives split $3.3 million of that pot, meaning an average bonus among elite CBC works out to $73,333. That's an average bonus, works out to more than what an average Canadian earns, according to Stats Can.
Earns in a year.
Earns in a year, apologies,
yeah.
According to Stats Canada.
So, okay, two things. One, if she hadn't gotten a bonus, it would have been really easy for her to say, I know that things are tough at the CBC right now, and we had to let a bunch of people go. I'm leading from the front, and I didn't take a bonus this year. That's what she would say if she didn't. So the fact that they're just like, okay, we'll go down this rabbit hole that ends up in a big loop and you can't get anywhere, that tells me that she did, in fact, take a bonus. And the other thing is that we're her fucking employers. They say, oh, this is for Canada. Well, if it's for Canada, then Canada should know how the fuck much they're paying for it. Right? If I had an employee right now, I would want to know how much I'm paying that person. It's kind of a big deal. I'm not out of line in saying that it's fucked.
It's kind of a big deal, too. It's kind of a big deal. New federal party tries to split the gap. A new political party will appear on the ballot in 2 upcoming by-elections as a Canadian Future Party seeks to introduce itself officially as a centrist option for voters. The party, approved by Elections Canada last month, will field candidates in LaSalle, Emard, Verdun, and Elmwood Triscona races in September. It goes on to say that Carty, a former cabinet minister in New Brunswick progressive conservative government that's provincial, says he sees room for his party's message as he surveys the current political landscape. We're the no nonsense party. We're going to be here to talk about things that are real, not try and spin them, not have lots of hyperbole on either side, and actually offer concrete solutions around the problems that I think have been totally ignored by the Liberals and Conservatives, particularly, he said. Twos.
Now it's interesting, that he says he's not going to use hyperbole, and yet, here's the headline to this article. A former progressive conservative who calls Pierre Poilievre terrifying is launching a new political party. They say they're not going to be left, they're not going to be right, they're just going to be some fucking thing. Anyway, if they're trying to split the gap between the Conservatives and the Liberals, they're already a left-wing party. Like the Liberals are over the top crazy. The Conservatives, what conservative policies do they have? There's big government, there's big regulations. They're proposing to be gatekeepers on municipal funding, because Poilievre has said multiple times that he's going to make sure that they set it up so that housing can get built, and if they don't, they're not going to get federal funding, which is literally the exact same thing that Trudeau says, except instead of liberal, it's building houses. So either way, they want to keep their thumb on top of things. There's nothing right-wing about the Conservatives. If you were going to be a centrist party in Canada, you would be the furthest right-wing thing that they have, except maybe the PPC.
Oh, well, I was thinking you could probably could you split hairs between the Conservatives and the PPC?
Yeah, you could split a lot of hairs between the Conservatives and the PPC.
I mean, you know what I mean. On the spectrum, is that where there could be a party at this point? What does it matter? What does it matter? Do you see anything coming in federal politics that you're going to be like, that makes sense? Right? I literally just talked about the Mavericks earlier this week. Once again, I want to say on Jason Levine's show of all, I think that's where it was. And we were talking about how the Mavericks were supposed to be the West version of the Reform Party, and I don't know where they sit. I actually have no idea where they sit anymore.
Basically, as soon as so they nominated their next leader, Colin Kruger, whatever it is, and as soon as that election was over, so it was him running against Tarek El-Naga, he beat Tarek, and then that was the last anybody heard of the Maverick Party. He was like, okay, we won. I'm going to go home and do absolutely nothing at all forever. And where have they gone? What have they done? They're just completely gone. The leader went AWOL, and nothing happened with the party ever since.
Venezuela faces unexpected pushback. This is from the True North article. It says Canada has thrown its support to protests that have broken out in Venezuela after electoral authorities declared incumbent socialist president Nicolas Maduro the victor in a wildly disputed election on Sunday, and have condemned Maduro's subsequent deployment of the military against the Venezuelan people. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre released a statement on Monday calling on Trudeau and Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly to not recognize Maduro's claims of victory in Venezuela's sham. election and his use of military to suppress voters, and the country's chosen presidential candidate, Edmundo Gonzalez, quoted, "Yesterday, the people of Venezuela voted to free their country from socialist oppression, yet the communist Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro has refused to accept the will of the people and manufactured a fake result that will keep his tyrannical regime in power," Polyev said.
Yes. And crazier and crazier still, I don't think I put it up in here, but Trudeau tweeted saying that that he wants to see some credible validation of the election. Trudeau wants to know for sure if somebody tried to thwart an election. Trudeau, who's had Chinese spies openly working for his fucking party, looks across the pond and says, I think there's some weird stuff going on in that election.
There's no proof to it.
How bad,
We're just
how
gonna
bad
hide.
does that election have to be when Justin fucking Trudeau is questioning the legitimacy of it? Okay, real quick, jump in. Frank Moulton says, I watched Savannah Sutherland from Borden Sask play 7th in the 400-meter hurdles.
Hey.
That's awesome. I didn't know anybody from Borden was there. Yeah, I got a lot of love for Borden. Shout out to anybody in Borden listening, or even, that whole area, Radisson, Hafford, Langham, Spears. Hey, everybody. All right. Next ad.
Everyone hates Canada's temporary foreign slave program.
Oh, I missed a
You missed
headline
one.
for China.
Of course
Okay.
he's missing.
All right, here's the headline.
Look at what he's doing to me. No. Due to temporary foreign workers, we'll come back. National Observer. Okay, foreign workers' higher wages are a major incentive, but business didn't want to pay, so they lobbied the feds, and the feds obliged by upping the numbers of low-wage temporary foreign workers, crushing labor rights in the process. Temporary foreign workers are easily exploited since they aren't permanent residents, and their temporary resident status is tied to a specific job, which frequently leads to employer abuse and denied employment rights. The government also rigged the market for industry. This is in the article, folks, with the influx of cheap foreign labor, suppressing the capacity for domestic workers to bargain for better wages and working conditions. 2 years later, the effects of the program are being felt. Young workers are struggling to find a job, while employers, among them, the coffee chain Tim Hortons, passed them over for cheap temporary foreign workers. A blog in TO, another article said, there's a viral map going. This is the first I'd seen of it, so, when they say viral, okay, maybe. Here's the map. Basically shows the thousands of entry-level and low-wage positions that are being filled with foreign workers in Ontario, and has now been followed by subsequent social media posts about Tim Hortons specifically, which users have calculated hired a whopping 1,131% more temporary foreign workers in 2023 than 2019.
1,131%. Here's the chart.
Yeah.
That's
thanks
how
for bringing
much
up the
it's
chart.
gone up
Yeah.
between 2016 and 2023. And whose fault do you think that is? I mean, there's a bunch of people saying it's Harper's fault, but the numbers were low and now they're not. And the craziest part of this is David Moscrop, who you may have seen on Twitter, generally saying the stupidest fucking things you could ever imagine. Saying the Liberals are running a temporary foreign worker program that has been called a breeding ground for contemporary forms of slavery, and all to serve big corporate interests. It's beyond disgusting. Yes, it is. But usually you're the guy defending this stuff. And now David Moscrop, who is just fucking retarded, is starting to grow brain cells when it comes to this stuff. That's how bad it is.
You know the thing I caught at the end though, Tews? And I'll throw it out to you and the listener and see what you think, right? So they call it slavery. They're using the word slavery. So now they're, you see, it's interesting to me because one of the things I would have thought they were trying to push was like, we need to slow down temporary foreign workers. That's one of the things that's been pointed out there, that maybe we need to slow that down and hire people from within the country. But then towards the end of one of the articles, it said the low-wage stream of the program ought to be massively reined in with an eye to eventually eliminating it for all but the most dire cases. And then I guess that point, I guess, makes sense. So they're talking about, the most dire circumstances. Okay. and then providing those who do enter with high stable wages and safe working conditions, okay, and permanent residency and a fast path to citizenship. So I was curious about that because I'm like, in one breath, we're going to get to a different topic, talking about how they're fast passing people with citizenship and now deporting them. Is that, like basically? And so I'm curious because underneath all the slavery is this fast pass to permanent residency and citizenship. And, I'm married to an American, right? We had to jump through hurdles to get my wife permanent residency. Heck, a job in general in Canada was difficult back then. So
Mrs. Hughes is an immigrant.
This is interesting to me, and I see the word play in there, and I'm curious to follow that a little bit closer because I see the word slavery being thrown around. And part of the story, I'm like, oh, they're trying to say we should axe it. Other part is like we should speed up and make it easier. And so I'm just curious about that as we move into the future.
How about this? It's not a government thing. It would never happen. But let's do something simple. Let's say if you're an employer and you want to bring somebody in because you can't hire anybody here, you sponsor them. You sign off saying that if they kill somebody, you're somehow responsible. You're going to make sure that they don't end up on the street. You're going to pay for whatever health care they need. And you're taking on some type of personal liability for bringing this person in. And if you're a not-for-profit, a church or something like that wants to sponsor in some refugees, cool, same deal. Okay. And then they've got to be here for however long until they get citizenship, and at which point their pensions start to vest and their, everything, right? And so that's how you get somebody in here. Is you put the onus on individuals who have the means and see the need for that person.
Oh, I think, yeah. I'm going to hit the buzzer. I just, as this continues to grow, this story, which I'm sure it will, I think we should pay attention to it because I just see the word slavery on it. And it's interesting. And you talk about the fact that normally they'd be defending it, now they're attacking it. I'm like, what is going on here? I'm curious about it, and if there's more underlying there that we're going to start to see evolve over the next, month, or is it next year? But regardless,
you get these weird contradictions, right? Because people on the left will A, support Trudeau no matter what, and B, think everybody should be allowed in, and C, always want to take sides with people who aren't white. And so now you've got these two things conflicting each other. It's like when the pro-Palestine people like
ran
to throw
into the
gays
gay
off
pride.
off roofs, and then they run into the gay pride.
Yes.
You've got an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. You get this divide by zero error in your spreadsheet, and everything is fucked. And it's interesting to see them with their divide by zero errors.
Chinese spry.
That's a typo. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. We can handle it. A former Canadian United Nations official, now an expert on North Korea, has been detained in Switzerland on suspicion of espionage for China. Swiss authorities, after monitoring his frequent travels to China, where he worked as an environmental consultant, suspected him of conducting political, economic, and military intelligence on behalf of the Chinese government. The investigation launched by the Swiss Attorney General's office on March 14th, 2023, remains ongoing.
How many red flags, aside from the Chinese one, were they looking at with this guy? He's making constant trips back and forth to China, and he's an expert on North Korea. North Korea is almost as hard to get into as it is to get out of. I would be like anybody who says they're an expert on North Korea, who isn't like one of the small handful of people who managed to escape. If you're someone who's capable of going there willingly and being willingly released back into the rest of the world,
you got to be skeptical.
Yeah, that's where you need to take a closer look. If someone puts a resume on your desk that says expert in North Korea, you're like, that guy's a fucking spy.
Unions from other countries also suck. The United Auto Workers Union has filed an unfair labor practice charge against former President Donald Trump and billionaire Elon Musk, arguing that the two men illegally intimidated workers in Monday night's interview on X, an installment, and I would say conversation. I don't know if I would call it an interview. Regardless, in a statement Tuesday, the union said the complaint centered on disparaging comments made by Trump on the platform, which was formerly known as Twitter, about striking workers. Trump suggested that employers could fire workers for going on strike, according to the union.
Honestly, I think that their labor laws, while being much better than ours in terms of, like, we just passed anti-scab legislation. So basically, if a bunch of workers want to go on strike, that's it. Everything shuts down. We've given so much power to unions, and it's an uneven balance. It's got to swing back the other way. And if it swings back hard and fast, I'm good with that.
Everything is Harper's fault. I don't know if you want to play the video here. This was a Sheila Gunn Reid, Rebel News. It's a tweet from Sheila Gunn Reid. She says, Liberal MP Jennifer O'Connell blames the Conservatives for allowing an ISIS terrorist featured in a terror recruitment video chopping at a crucified man with a sword to resettle in Canada with his son.
Yeah, so we talked about this before.
Yes.
And this lady is so Jen O'Connell, the boo-hoo, why don't you go cry about it? About which part of it? Oh, shoot, I'm drawing a blank. This is the problem with liberal scandals, is that there's so many of them that you're like, oh, this is the one who said this stupid thing during, which scandal was it? I think it was during the Green Slush Fund, but I can't remember for sure. Anyway, the Chinese spies. When we had the Chinese spies trying to affect the outcome of the election, and she said, boo-hoo, get over it. This is her saying that because Harper cut funding in it a decade ago. Like, imagine you had a job and there's some guy who hasn't even been there for 10 years. And you're like, oh, well, someone says, oh, why didn't you get that pallet moved over here? Or why didn't you finish up this report? And you'd be like, oh, it's Jenkins's fault. It's nothing to do with me. It's all that other guy who hasn't been here for a fucking decade. This shit wouldn't fly in the real world. It can only work in Ottawa. And there's so many times that applies. It's fucking ridiculous.
Mischief abounds. Ezra Levant, he asked one of the lawyers here to estimate the amount of taxpayers' money that has been spent prosecuting Tamara Lich. The lawyer spoke with estimated that the government has spent more than $5 million prosecuting Tamara Lich so far for a mischief charge. And then he went on to say, don't pawn this off just on Justin Trudeau. Yes, he invoked the Emergencies Act and deployed the RCMP, but it was the Ottawa police who did much of the dirty work, and it's Doug Ford's Attorney General, Douglas Downey, who has approved and funded and defended the vendetta.
$5 million. I mean, we were talking about estimates with Jason about what the Coots was going to cost, or maybe I was listening to somebody else talk about it. But millions for them to get acquitted of this stuff. $5 million, and that's just on the prosecution side. How much money has Tamara Lich spent with the travel back and forth, with lawyering up, with all of that stuff? It's insane that they would do this. And this tells you that they're right, by the way, because no normal government would ever go to these lengths for something that was actually justified.
We all know the
fact that, yes.
I mean, it's beyond ridiculous, too. It's beyond ridiculous. It's fitting of the world we're sitting in, but it's beyond ridiculous, right? Like, I mean, it's just ridiculous at this point, what's going on. Everybody can see it, and if you pay attention for more than 2 minutes, heck, maybe even 30 seconds, you're like, this makes zero sense. Look at the people that are getting out and doing horrific things, and you got millions of dollars being spent on trying to put Tamara Lich away. It's not even trying to put Tamara Lich away. Like, I mean, it's a show.
It's lawfare.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's just trying to, I think, intimidate people to not stand
That's
up for what
exactly
they
it.
believe in. That's
That's exactly what it is. And I just, you know, Ezra Levant's right, and that there's so many people involved in this other than Trudeau. At what point do people say, look, this is just insane? What you're wanting me to do is just try and ruin somebody's life because they disagreed with the guy in charge of the country? I've got a little bit more ethics than that.
yeah. Well, I think
But the
we're
problem with the law community is that there isn't a lot of ethics.
well. I think we're just learning that.
That
I,
people will do fucking anything for money, even if it's at the
this is a
expense of
story
something
as
else.
old as time too. This isn't something new. I know for our age group, or maybe older than us, even younger than us, like we're seeing it and realizing it for the first time because we're paying attention to it. But just read some books. This is literally as old as time. People will do. They get a fat paycheck, and you're seeing it play out. I can imagine the lawyers like, "Oh, drag this on for another 2 years if we keep getting paid like this. This is free money to do what? I mean, other than look like buffoons in the process.
But
I
if
mean,
you get rich while you're looking like a buffoon, who cares? But I just, how do you look at yourself in the mirror?
the la- the lavish the lavish destination of Sudbury. The conservative part, like, that sentence ever been said before?
No.
And a Holiday Inn. I got nothing against Holiday Inns. I want to make that perfectly clear.
Oh
But
yeah.
I mean, of all the reasonable things politicians having a swanky retreat in Sudbury Holiday Inn, I don't think it actually seems pretty reasonable. The Conservative Party of
That's
Canada is
the
putting
thing.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on blast for what they describe as a lavish and swanky retreat at a Sudbury Holiday Inn. I'm sorry. I don't even know where to go with that. Twos, have your way with Sudbury, lavish, swanky, and a Holiday Inn.
We have said so many times that they'll blow tons of money going to fancy, ridiculous places for their retreats in Canada. And whenever they're flying abroad, it's that $5,000 a night hotel in England or the $280,000 worth of food catering on a flight to Dubai or whatever else. Like this, we've been asking for this exact thing for years. But the Conservatives are so used to, I don't know if it was a knee jerk or they were kind of hoping to pull something off on somebody, but this is what I would hope happened. All right. Well, you know what? Everybody, we're going to be in meeting room 2 for the day. And then your
Where
hotel
at?
rooms are all upstairs, and there's a continental breakfast in the morning. That's fairly reasonable.
Could you imagine? They wake up and they actually have the continental breakfast. It's like you got everybody lined up at the waffle maker.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they got one of those fancy waffle makers. It's like, yeah, that's what you get. That's what you get, not
That's what normal people do.
$12 orange juice.
Oh, I wish we only bought $12 orange juice.
Fair enough. Homelessness numbers off the charts and therefore need to find a home on another chart. The government in Ontario estimates nearly 250,000, roughly 3 of every 200 residents, are homeless, according to information contained in a housing ministry document. Man, that's a lot of homeless. 250,000 people.
Think about that. Like that's Saskatoon.
Yeah. It says 2 years ago marked a then record for asylum claim. Well, this is just parts of the story. 2 years ago marked a then record for asylum claims in Canada, with almost 26,500 processed in Ontario. In 2023, that number has shot up to 63,000 in the province. Toronto's shelter system has a capacity for around 10,000 people. This February, more than 4,300 of asylum claimants were using the system. 3 years ago in 2021, only 537 people were asylum claimants were in the city shelters. So there's lots of statistics breaking it down. Obviously, the big one being the 250,000. Part of the strain.
234,000.
Sorry, 234,000.
That's an absolutely unfathomable amount.
Yes, that's a lot.
Yeah. I don't even like that's basically it. Is that there's a whole shit ton of people who are fucking homeless. And I just I don't even know where to go with it. Just buzz me out.
Update. Terrorists. Toronto Sun. Do we want to show the video? Was there a video? Why did I have that in there?
I've got yeah.
Do you want to show the debate of Harper and Trudeau?
I'll show it after you go through the article.
Okay, sure. Okay, here's Toronto Sun. Immigration Minister Mac Miller said his office is investigating the possibility of reversing the Canadian citizenship granted to 62-year-old Ahmed Fawad Mustafa El Didi, who, along with his 26-year-old son, were arrested earlier this month, suspected of masterminding a thwarted terror attack on behalf of the Islamic State. The elder El Didi is also accused of participating in an ISIS torture video produced in 2015 before the Egyptian national arrived in Canada. Miller told reporters he's tasked his staff with piecing together the timeline of events that saw Canada's immigration bureaucracy not only grant El Didi permanent residence status, but also allowed him to become a citizen. I wonder how long it'll take him to piece that together, one. But two, show the video if you like, too.
Yes. So the Liberals are looking at revoking this guy's citizenship. And yet, here, from the 2015 election debate.
No. Is that your position? No, because we revoked the citizenship already of war criminals. And why would we not revoke the citizenship of people convicted of terrorist offenses against this country? This was a bill put forward. This was a bill put forward by a member of Parliament who is himself an immigrant, Devinder Shori. This is not the standards we expect. Immigrants, Canadians, all of us who are here expect that we would have a minimum bar, that people would not, people who come here would not be guilty of trying to plan terrorist attacks against this country.
A Canadian is a Canadian, and you devalue.
So, if you recall, Harper was accused of being racist for this. And in the eye of the public, which was more or less the eye of the journalist there, Trudeau was in the right on this in saying a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian. And now, almost a decade later, when this is the exact thing that people were worried was going to happen. And when it happened, he's like, "Oh yeah, we're going to kick this fucker out." Being right is fun, but it sucks sometimes when you're being retrospectively right.
It's like listening to that, those two go back and forth. You know, it's crazy to me Justin Trudeau got elected when you hear Harper speak. Like, when I listen to Harper speak, I'm like, man alive. You know, like, we actually had a politician, and I know there's a whole bunch more to it, but, like, when you listen to him speak, he feels like a parent in the room instead of a child. And we elected the child, and now we're reaping what has come through that. Even though, you know, the West, you know, didn't vote for him. I mean, here he is. He's sitting there 9 years later. It's going to be 10 years later, and it is just insanity. And, of course, yes, Mac Miller now, his office investigating whether or not to reverse a Canadian citizenship for a guy who's done horrendous things and was going to try and do horrendous things on Canadian soil. Like, is it even a question? Like, what is there to investigate? Sure, you got to make sure that it's factual and everything else, obviously. But I'm like, how long does it take that? How long would it take to investigate that? How long? You got the power of the government at your hands.
Well, I mean, if you could freeze everybody's bank account with the snap of a finger, I imagine you could get a few things done if you wanted to. But there's so many clips like this over Trudeau's tenure where things go bad, and then you bring up an old clip where talking about it, you were just, you're a racist, you're a racist, or you're a warmonger. You know, he told Harper that he wanted to whip out his CF-18s and show everybody how big they are. And then you fast forward 7-8 years, Trudeau is ordering a whole shit ton of CF-18s at something like triple the fucking price.
Oh, man. 2025 cannot come fast enough. The NDP are not a serious party. Tell me something I don't know, Twos. The Alberta New Democratic Party broke elections finance rules during its leadership campaign earlier this year here in Alberta, according to Elections Alberta investigation prompted by a complaint from the governing United Conservative Party. In February, the UCP wrote to Elections Alberta alleging the NDP was breaching Section 25(1) of the Election Finances and Contributions Disclosure Act, which states an annual membership fee is not to be considered a contribution. In the complaint, the UCP alleged the NDP's membership forms illegally equated party membership fees with contributions. It also claimed that part of the NDP constitution that stated any donation to the party over $10 is deemed a valid membership renewal broke elections rules. Twos, can you just explain this to me in common terms? Because I read this and I'm like, this feels like this is a nothing burger, but maybe I am not understanding it correctly.
Okay, fair enough. Does it have sweeping ramifications? No. But here's what happened was stage one was them trying to say that anybody who donated to the party, they wanted to say that they weren't losing in fundraising as bad as they were. So they counted all the membership purchases towards their funding totals, which they can't do. And so then they said, okay, well, what if we just counted all of our donations as memberships? And then we could at least say we've got high membership, right? And then, when you see a couple times a year,
so it's
see that news
gamesmanship.
article that says this much money and that party raised that much money, or this party has this many new members and that party has so many new members. They're trying to add up. They try to count both on one side, and then when that didn't work, they tried to count both on the other side. It reeks of desperation and or incompetence, but probably more desperation.
So if I'm hearing you correct, they're caught trying to play the game, which is they're trying to say that they're like this, they're really heavily supported, their memberships are great, on and on it goes. They're trying to paint this story. And the UCP said you can't do that. They're going to get fined $5,000, I believe, is what the article said for what they did, and it's just gamesmanship. That's the big thing. And if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is that we should be able to just point out the fact that nobody cares about the NDP, and that should be the talking point. And what they tried to say was we're growing and we're going to come back faster than ever, and it's the narrative they're trying to portray is a lie.
They're trying to pretend that they're still relevant, and it's not working. And so that's the implication of it, is that they're tweaking that towards those handful of articles that come out every year that say, oh yeah, there's lots of people that like this party or whatever else, and it's not true. What a bunch of schmucks. Frank Moulton Jr. Twos, I just started listening to this podcast 10 days ago. Welcome. Catching up with back episodes like crazy. Why are you called Twos? For the record, 2 is my favorite number. I have 5 2s in my phone number, and I once had 5 2s in a poker game. That would have been awesome. I wish I had 5 2s in a poker game. So I'm 222 minutes on Twitter. And the first time I went on Sean's podcast before we developed this bromance you see here, it's like, well, what am I going to call you? Because 222 minutes is a little bit long.
And all I do is create nicknames, and so he's been Twos ever since.
Yes.
And his girlfriend is Mrs. Twos, and my family knows him as Twos, and nobody calls him by his real name. And I just said this on a Jason Levine show, Twos, that I went to get you. I remember booking a hotel room, and I was going to put your name down, and I had to call you because I'm like, I can't.
What's
put
your
down
last
Twos.
name?
I'm like, wait, I don't know what his full name is, folks, which is kind of funny. But I don't really care because you're just Twos to myself, and I think most of Alberta now.
Well, actually, I'm getting some renos done at the house. And so the contractor we decided to go with, he mentions at one point, he's like, you seem familiar. Like, have we met before? And I'm like, no, man, we've never met. And then realized a little bit later on, oh, yeah, he's been listening to the show a bit too. He tuned into the election live stream all the way back. And yeah, he checks us out from time to time.
Cool.
So talking
about election live stream, pay attention to the community notes at the end, folks. We got a few things coming up with live election coverage that doesn't suck, I might add. Scary virus of the week. Nobody cares. But sure, we'll talk about it for a brief 10 seconds.
No. That's basically it. No, Basically, there's a thing telling you where you can find COVID rapid test kits and what to do with your expired ones. And
Mpox. And Mpox.
Yeah, we're not calling it monkeypox anymore. We're calling it Mpox.
It's a global public health emergency.
Yeah, and Canada must respond to the crisis in Africa to prevent spread here. I don't give a shit.
Sorry, I'm supposed to be buzzing, but I'm like, I don't even need to buzz that one. Ottawa, 'tis a silly place. Is it? Shall we bring up, I don't know, say the mayor of Ottawa? And he tweets out, if Ottawa is going to be a city in accordance with its national significance, it needs real dollars and the feds should pony up.
Yes. So, if Ottawa is going to be in a city in accordance with its national significance, it needs real dollars.
I literally just read that. Are you repeating me?
Yes. So that's the important part. If it's going to be in with its own significance, Ottawa is completely fucking insignificant. Nothing of value happens in that whole fucking place. All right. And in 2021, they gave $2.9 million to a Porsche dealership. The city did. Tell me how badly a fucking Porsche dealership needs government handouts at a municipal level? Come on. It's ridiculous. So basically, they're just, oh, we ran out of money. Why don't you go to that Porsche dealership and get some of that fucking money back? And also, Ottawa sucks. They talk about it like, oh, yeah, we deserve this. We deserve this because we need all of this money from the government. Just give me a sec here. We need a bunch of money from the government. We need the rest of Canada to buy a bunch of stuff for us because we're important. That's the attitude of Ottawa. And for the record, everybody who lives in that city lives there as a result of everybody else in the fucking country working and giving them money. So how much is enough?
I'm curious. On your hate-o-meter, on the things that are right up there, is it Quebec or is it Ottawa? Which one pisses you off more?
Fucking Quebec. Not by much, though.
Moratorium's nonpartisan analysis. This is from Corporate Knights. A new report found that 53%, representing 8,600 megawatts of power, were shelved in the years since the provincial government placed a moratorium on renewables. Once again, we're talking Alberta. 1 year after the provincial government imposed a 7-month halt on new solar, wind, hydro, biomass, and geothermal ventures, a report from the environmental think tank Pembina Institute reveals that 53 projects were canceled, representing more than 8,600 megawatts of power generating capacity.
Yes. So that was apparently almost enough to power the entire province.
Almost.
And we were only 53 windmill projects away from powering the entire province with renewables. That stretches credulity. Now, it's interesting. If you check out Corporate Knights, just look at the things that are on this website. You've got an ad up top, 2 of them, actually. Which future are you creating? And then there's some strip mining on the left side, and then there's a bunch of green windmills on the right side. And it says Bullfrog Power, choose green energy. Latest posts. Politicians think that climate policies are much less popular than they actually are. ESG funds pouring millions into meat company linked to Brazil deforestation. Wind and solar energy surges past fossil fuels for the first time.
Are you trying to point out that they might have a little bit of bias?
If I can point out your fucking bias without even having to get into the article, yes, they are biased. And here's the other thing. So this was Thomas Lukazik tweeting this article. Now, for those of you who don't know, Corporate Knights is based in Toronto. And here's him saying, Danielle Smith, congratulations. Alberta makes the international news again. The world is laughing at us. It's based out of fucking Toronto, you dipshit.
That's pretty funny. I think somewhere somebody's laughing. I think Ford is ran by a bunch of nerds. Man, this is, every once in a while, too, we have an article where I read it and I go, the hell are they doing that? Anyways, this is the why the hell are they doing that article of the last, I don't know, 5 mashups. Ford Motors has developed a new technology that effectively acts as a speeding snitchometer. America's oldest automobile manufacturer preferred to call their new development the Systems and Methods for Detecting Speeding Violation. And you just know that's not good. And the company has filed a patent with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to ensure that it's proprietary to their vehicles. In practice, it would detect speeding cars in proximity to the car in which the device was installed and report them to law enforcement. The technology, which would be built in future vehicles, uses internal sensors to monitor and report speeding infractions by other cars on the roads, adding that this move is part of Ford's ongoing innovation in vehicle technology and law enforcement tools. The system would allow Ford vehicles to photograph speeding cars, chart their GPS location, and send it immediately to the nearest police station for perusal and potential arrests. Is the part of this, like what they're targeting is cop vehicles, so that the cops' vehicles have this? Or are they saying they're going to put this on all vehicles?
The way I read it is that they want to put it on all vehicles, which is just fucking gay.
Well, I'm thinking,
retarded.
I've been thinking about this the entire time. I'm like, they must be filing the patent. Maybe this is me being way too logical. Filing the patent so that governments have to buy it off of Ford so that they can use it for their police vehicles. Yes?
Maybe, but the way it's read is that they're putting it on future vehicles, right? Now, here's the thing. The best thing you could have done with this was you develop the technology, you file a patent, the patent gets granted, and then you do a public announcement saying, this is a shit idea. This is horrible. So we patented it so that nobody else can use it. And we're never going to build a single fucking one of them.
That would be playing 4D chess. I don't know if Ford's doing that.
That would, how many people would buy? They'd be like, wow, I like that company. I'm going to buy a car from them. That's how you run up business. And then they just have the whole development and patenting cost is marketing expenses.
Monday, switching the topic just slightly. Monday, I have James Lindsay back on the podcast, okay? And he told me afterwards he's flying to Korea. And I'm like, what the heck are you flying to Korea? And I believe he told me, I want to say Samsung. Now, I hope I'm not butchering this.
I think Samsung's Korean.
He said that their owner is like super non-woke and wants nothing to do with it. And as soon as he said that, like what you're talking about, the reason I'm bringing it up, as soon as he said that, I'm like, man, that makes me want to buy a Samsung, right? Like, I'm like,
yep.
Like hearing that they're bringing in Dr. James Lindsay, I'm like, holy crap. You know, if Ford did it and their goal was so nobody could have this technology, you're right. Ford would go up immeasurably in so many people's books. They'd be like, yeah, right on. Power to the people. Let's go buy a Ford. Yep. Instead, and you'd be like, they do this and you don't get that feeling.
We give permission to Chevy to not use it, and we give permission to Dodge to not use it, and we give permission to Toyota to not use it. And you could even write them letters. You could have so much fun with that. That would be the way to handle this. But instead, they're a bunch of idiots. So, by the way, is James Lindsay an expert on North Korea?
Liberal EV handout of the week. I don't even know where is this a tweet? Am I skipping something here?
Conservatives. Oh, yes. We skipped another one. Jesus. We had Stephen Gayballs with the HVAC stuff.
Yeah, that's Stephen Gayballs. That's right. Okay, EVs. Okay, there's a video here. Conservatives won't invest in Canadians' industries. They don't think this is true. They don't think we can build big things here. Well, we believe in Canadian workers, and so do companies like Goodyear, Honda, and General Motors. And then Mary, I don't know how do Ning. She's deputy MP for the internet. Deputy Markham. What?
Nothing. Continue.
I joined. Anyway, I'm laughing at myself at this point, folks. I joined Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in announcing that our government is investing $44.3 million in Goodyear's Napanee plant to build EV tires. In Canada.
Well, the thing about EVs is that they're significantly heavier than other motor vehicles of comparable size, and so they need to have a completely different tire makeup, which I feel like I don't know how tires are made, but I'm guessing they just pour a bunch of stuff into a mold. And so all you're doing is just pouring different stuff into a mold. And somehow, for some reason, that requires another grant from the Liberals. Here's the really troubling part about this. I wanna show a little clip. I think I got it in the right spot, but forgive me if it's not. This is from the video that Trudeau put out.
See, every government, every leader has choices. Confident countries invest in themselves and in their workers.
This confident countries invest in themselves and their workers. It sounds really good, but it's not at all. But that's one hell of a good soundbite if you're big into things like socialism and communism, because your knee-jerk reaction is, well, yeah, maybe we should be investing in ourselves and our workers. No. Confident countries create business environments where other people want to come and invest. They are encouraging the development with the laws and regulations that they pass, not doing it personally.
So when you say that unnerves you, with the election still over a year away, you're like,
it's a really good slogan.
And you see that and you go, right? Because there's so many of us go, there's no way he's getting reelected. Yet no. I've heard too many people say he runs a good election. I don't think they mean that in the sense of like, I like him and what he does at election time. Just that when it comes to that portion of it, for some reason, Justin Trudeau rises to the occasion. Folks, I don't know. I'm going to have to watch as we get closer to see, if I agree or not. But when you see that slogan come out, you're like, damn it, he's found a slogan that people are going to buy into. And that's unnerving.
Yes. And so anyway, I think if I was in Poilievre's camp right off the bat, I would be like, what's the most succinct way we can absolutely defang that? Because what's Trudeau's thing is it's handing out shit tons of taxpayer money to pet projects. And if he can find a way to justify it like that, ugh. See, because it's not whether it's good or not, it's whether it's well received or not. And I think that if he gets a chance to run with that, it's going to go a lot better than the "we've got your backs" that they tried a couple of years ago.
Paul Levine says, "Forgot this was on." Hello, folks. That's Jason's wife. I learned. So there you go.
Hello.
So, thanks for hopping on.
Yes, absolutely. All right.
Who races the racists? This is a National Post article. It says the embattled incoming chief of the Canadian Human Rights Commission announced Monday he was resigning from the role following concerns from the federal justice minister about the candor he demonstrated in the process that led to his appointment. Burju Ditani released a brief statement on his LinkedIn page saying his resignation was effective immediately, marked an end to weeks of backlash both he and the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau's government, have faced since he was appointed to the role back in June.
He never really did anything. Like, did he even move into his office?
I don't think he had time to, did he?
No. It was basically over before it started. Because as soon as he got this appointment, a few intrepid journalists were like, well, let's see what weird racist shit he's said in the past, because those are the only people who get jobs like this in the government. And luckily, there's a Twitter machine. Oh, wait. He hates Jews more than foreskins. I want to read a little clip here. So this was, I would say, probably the most important part of the article that I read. Error. The server encountered a temporary error and could not complete your request. Please try again in 30 seconds.
So-called soft landing. Here, I'll bring it up. Here's Nora Hewer says, "Are people mad now that Canada achieved a soft landing and did not slide into a recession? Because you are sure acting like it." And then, well, I don't know. Berta Fringe had a yeah.
I have no idea who this person is. I just find it really interesting because I didn't see the Berta Fringe, but I would say that there's three reasons why we're not in a recession right now. One of them is that the Bank of Canada lowered interest rates lower than is really sustainable. The second one is that our population has absolutely fucking exploded. And the third one is, oh shoot, what was I going to say the third one was? Oh, yeah, despite all of our private sector job losses, we've also made a shit ton of public sectors. So the federal government has been on a ridiculous hiring spree to make up the numbers so that they don't look like they're in a recession, and they keep printing money to pay those people. And Bank of Canada is keeping interest rates artificially low. And we've got a shit ton of new immigrants coming in who are bringing down our GDP per capita, but the actual GDP is growing because pennies add up. So is it a soft landing? No, it's doing everything you can to try and poke your fingers in the holes of the boat.
Happy news, folks. Happy news. How about we take a look at this bus driver and the old bus that got burned down. It says, according to Aurora Fire Rescue, the bus was fully engulfed in flames when firefighters arrived. Thanks to the bus driver's swift actions, all 14 children were safely evacuated without injury.
Yeah. Good story. Basically, he saw smoke coming out through the dash, and he's just pulled over, and he's like, everybody get out. And then it just burned down. So he didn't even fuck around, worry about like, oh, is everything okay? Or is, some fuse going to blow and we're going to be fine? No, he's just like, everybody out. And Sean, this is probably a little bit confusing for you. This is probably the longest bus you've ever seen, but they actually do come in greater sizes than what you're used to.
Mashup 120 in the books, folks. Let's talk a little community note, shall we? A little dig at me towards the end. I was, you were being kind today, I guess. Community notes, Crossfield Demolition Derby, August 24th. That's coming up right away. So if you're in the Crossfield area, Demolition Derby, you have, on this side of things, we teased, if you, as we're watching this, if you got community things coming up, please comment. We'll read them out. And twos can hop in with any of those, pop them up on the show notes or on the screen. But Sask election coverage that doesn't suck. BC election coverage that doesn't suck. And we're going to have some fun probably with the USA election as well. And I don't know. We're gonna probably have some of that. A couple of Canadians talking about the U.S. But anyways, October 19th, 28th, November 5th, the mashup is going to be doing what we did for the Alberta election. So we're going to start that October 19th, and then October 28th, and we'll probably just do a live stream, I assume, too, for November 5th. I don't know if we need to get too crazy on the U.S. election, but I mean, shoot, if we have great turnouts on the 19th and 28th, maybe we'll just ramp it up for the 5th as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be close to a game time decision. It's a lot of travel in 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, so if I should point out, for those who weren't around for the mashup election coverage of Alberta, we had nothing but technical issues for the first 2 hours. I may have been a touch stressed, but at one point we had 8,500 people watching us with all the technical issues, laughing their ass off because I'm sure we were freeballing it on the fly.
It ended up being more than double that.
Yeah. So our hope is with BC, obviously us two yahoos don't live in BC. We got a lot of listeners from across Canada, and BC's got an election coming up. We're gonna have that as our stepping stone towards Saskatchewan. That doesn't mean the election coverage is going to be anything but what we do. But the hope is we can build off BC, into Saskatchewan, and you'll be able to find us talking about those two provincial elections here, and we're going to have some fun with it, as we always do, twos.
The Alberta election was an absolute blast. By the time we got done, though, I was so wiped, but it was just...
Well, I think we ended up going for...
It was a tired high, you know what I mean?
I think we ended up going for, was it 4 or was it 5 hours?
I think it was even more than 5.
Yeah, I think it might have been. We had Tim Moen in, and then Dustin Newman came in as well, my brother. And the four of us did a panel, and we had a lot of fun with it. And
We had
we'll see if
live
we
coverage from the UCP headquarters. We tried to get NDP headquarters access, but they weren't responding to our request for some reason. We had a bunch of different...
Rachel Notley did not answer our request to come on. But we had a lot of fun with it. That was I mean, minus the setbacks, hopefully we'll be better. Well, we will be better the second time around, and certainly the third time
we came away with a lot of lessons learned.
Yeah, for sure. So that's October 19th, October 28th here in BC and Saskatchewan elections coming up. We're going to have some fun with it, and you'll be able to find that on the Mashup live streaming those nights. Anything else, twos, community notes wise? I feel like there was one snuck in there. Did you pull it up by chance?
So the community notes call out, and then what I put at the end was, just the demo derby.
Okay, cool. Well, that is
Michelle
Mashup.
Says she's looking forward to our coverage of Saskatchewan on election night.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be...
Oh, wait. There we go. Rumble in the Cage, MMA, bare knuckle boxing, September 21st in Lethbridge from Jamie Ingram, who, I mean, it's hard to tell exactly, but she looks jacked. So...
Make sure...
I can't tell.
I can't. Make sure if you enjoyed today's program, if you're on Twitter, make sure to tweet it out, right? Like, give us some help here. Appreciate it.
Spread the word.
Anywhere you're at, we appreciate if you share us on social media, if you're following, comment, all those good things. Once again, today's episode, Mashup 120, brought to you by Taylor King Real Estate. So if you're in the Carstairs to High River area, look him up. He's one of us. And if you got a place to sell, buy something you're looking into, go to tkre.ca for all of it there. Twos, Mashup 120 in the books. Thank you, sir. And we'll catch up to you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.